Why did they laugh the moment she stepped onto the range? Why did silence always follow her name, if they bothered to use it at all? Leah Monroe pretended she didn't hear the jokes. She pretended she didn't feel the stares. She pretended the cold morning air didn't sting more than the laughter did. A gray windbreaker. No patches. No rank. Clipboard in hand. To them, she was just another quiet civilian brought in to check boxes and slow their momentum. But there was something she hadn't told them. Something she kept buried deeper than scars. The mist rolled like low smoke across Fort Carson's training grounds, swirling around the boots of young recruits who were too eager, too fearless, too unaware of how fast a routine day could turn into nightmare. Their breath steamed in the cold as they formed in line. Some whispered, some pointed. One laughed a little too loud. Staff Sergeant Trent Vance, confidence stretched thin into arrogance, made a show of smirking as Lee approached. "Careful, consultant," he called out, voice pitched for attention. "Try not to trip. That clipboard looks heavy." The line cracked open with laughter, the kind that stung because it wasn't personal but dismissive. Mere noise. The sound of people who had no idea who they were mocking. Lee didn't react. She simply tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and looked across the range, really looked. Wind direction. Elevation drop. Hard cover. Soft sand. She saw everything, measured everything, recorded everything. That calm precision bothered them more than if she had shouted. Master Gunnery Sergeant Victor Stone watched her from a distance. Broad shoulders, hands behind his back, expression carved from decades of combat and consequence. He squinted at her stance, weight over the balls of her feet, spine aligned, head angled so only one eye was visible. Not the posture of a clerk, not the posture of fear. The posture of someone who had learned to survive. Lee's file said she was 38, a temporary administrative safety consultant from Quantico. No ribbons, no decorations, no record of having ever fired a weapon, a ghost in paperwork, a civilian by all appearances. But Stone had buried enough Marines to recognize the ones who still carried war in their bones. She walked the line, checking equipment and faces, a jittery recruit, a stressed trainee trying too hard, fingers too close to triggers, positions too close to each other. A single mistake would multiply in a heartbeat. And she could already feel it coming. She paused near the ammo table, noticing the bin of blank fire adapters, some cracked, some warped, threads damaged, set screws missing. She asked the armorer to tag them out. "Talk to Vance," he said, "not my call." She nodded, wrote it down, continued on. Later, during briefing, Lee stood silently at the back while Lieutenant Brennan explained procedures with a coffee in one hand and impatience in the other. When Lee raised her hand to suggest increasing safety distance due to crosswind, Brennan rolled his eyes. "We're here to train soldiers, not create knitting circles," he said. A laugh, another note in her book. The evening brought more of the same. She cleaned trauma kits, organized them in the order of actual field use. When questioned, she responded with a small smile. "It saves seconds," she said. "Seconds don't matter here," someone muttered. Seconds always mattered to her. She jogged before dawn, not for fitness but to quiet the memories. Weighted pack, heel to toe, no music, breathing like a metronome. Gunfire echoed from the range, and each shot made her shoulders stiffen. She tilted her head, listening for rate and elevation, calculating angles she pretended not to know anymore. She tried to drown out the memory of a dusty road, men screaming for tourniquets that weren't coming fast enough, a radio that wouldn't stop calling her name, blood she couldn't wash off. But the past had a way of living in the silence between breaths. The fourth morning brought another round of briefing. Brennan gestured wildly at the map board. "Speed through corners," he barked. "Don't overthink, confidence keeps you alive." Responsibility keeps you alive, Lee thought. She raised her hand again. "Sir, recommend rotating medics through each lane. Response times lag when they're overextended. Brennan didn't bother hiding his sigh. Lady, this is training. We create chaos. Controlled chaos. If we wanted neat and tidy, we'd host a parade. His voice carried across the group, and recruits grinned because his confidence was easier than her caution. She didn't argue. Arguing burned time, so she made a note instead. 3 hours later, she was proven right. A rifle jammed, not a malfunction but human panic. Muzzle sweeping low, finger on trigger, breath shaking. Lee moved faster than fear. Lisa. Her voice wasn't loud, but it stopped motion. She cleared the weapon, checked the adapter, loose thread bite, and returned it to the bin she'd warned about. The trainee stared like she'd just turned lead into air. She wrote another note. Vance saw the movement and scoffed. The day a clipboard saves a life is the day pigs salute the flag. His laughter echoed. Lee stared at him, and for a moment something flickered in her eyes. A shadow, a battle, a promise. Then it was gone. That night she sat alone in silent bleachers, cleaning her boots with ritual precision. The red dust on the leather looked too much like the dust of another country. Her fingers paused, and she had to remind herself. Different sand, different time, different war. She opened her logbook and wrote with calm hands and a trembling heartbeat. They don't see what's coming. A voice broke the silence. You keep running at 4:45. Stone lowered himself onto the bleacher behind her. She didn't look at him. It's quiet then. You ran in places where quiet wasn't an option. She didn't answer. You know too much to be a clipboard, he added. She finally turned her head, or just enough to keep them alive. He smiled for the first time, sad, knowing, experienced. I've seen leaders who bark. I've seen leaders who break. And then there are the quiet ones, the ones who won't let kids bleed for someone else's pride. She swallowed, her voice cracked despite her control. I promised myself I'd never lose another one, because someone thought safety was optional. Stone nodded once, the nod of a man who understood exactly what that meant. You going to keep writing all of it down? He asked. Yes, she said, until someone reads it. He stood and paused, glancing at the sky. Wind shifts tomorrow, right to left. Your 5 paces should be 7. She didn't ask how he knew. She suggested 5. Some respect lived in silence. A few nights later, the base cafeteria buzzed with rumors. One recruit whispered that Lee had caught a falling rifle midair and cleared it without blinking. Another said she had corrected a medic's treatment before vitals were even taken. Someone had seen a faded duffel bag with a carved tag. Iron Hawk. The name spread like wildfire, fueled by imagination and insecurity. Some recruits became cautious around her. Some watched her with awe. Others, especially the loudest ones, watched with fear. Vance tried to keep the jokes alive, but even he noticed that laughter didn't come as easily anymore. The morning of live fire certification, Lee's warning sat buried under a coffee mug, ignored and invisible. Her handwritten caution, circled in red ink, meant nothing to men who thought ink couldn't bleed. The range went hot. Brass flew, smoke lifted. Wind swept hard from the ridgeline right to left, just as Stone had said. Lee kept her eyes on the trainees, not the targets. She watched hands, positions, adapters being swapped without checks. The bin clanged with metal on metal, rushed, lazy, confident movements. Her note had said it clearly. High potential for preventable casualty. Her chest tightened. She took one step closer to the line. Private Connor Hayes, the same kid she helped with boots, fired smoothly at first. Confident, overconfident, a loose adapter from the bottom of the bin. Lee saw it even from a distance, seated wrong. Strain building, threads grinding. She inhaled sharply. And then, a cough instead of a crack, a burst too sharp. A sound her nightmares had memorized. Lee dropped the clipboard. It skittered across concrete. Her voice didn't rise, but it took over the world. Cease fire. Everything froze. Haze collapsed, blood blooming through fabric. Feet moved too slow, eyes blinked too dumb. No one, not even the range safety, reacted fast enough. Except her. She slid beneath Hayes before his body finished falling. Hands already working, tourniquet high, pressure exact, airway checked, pulse counted. She didn't breathe panic. Panic killed. And for the first time, everyone saw exactly who she was. Her sleeve tore against rough concrete. The windbreaker slid up her arm. Ink black, bold, unmistakable. Eagle, globe, anchor. MC map, black belt insignia. The laughter died forever. Vance stared. Brennan's jaw clenched. Recruits froze like statues carved from regret. But Lee didn't see them. She only saw the blood she refused to let spill. The past she refused to repeat. The promise she refused to break. Connor Hayes' trembling hand clutched her sleeve. His voice cracked. "Ma'am, am I gonna be okay?" "Yes," she whispered, locking eyes with him. Because this time she would not fail. Because silence wasn't weakness. Silence was strength trained not to waste a second. Silence was a full history of battle that no one bothered to read. Silence was the reason he was still alive. How could one moment change everything? How could truth, buried for years, erupt in seconds, and reveal the warrior she tried so hard not to be? The aid truck rumbled in as dust spun through sunlight. Lee walked alongside Private Connor Hayes, one hand steady on his shoulder, keeping him focused, keeping him alive. The medic team slid the litter into the truck, and Lee rattled off a flawless report, numbers, times, vitals, her voice calm, clipped, painfully familiar. She watched Hayes go, not with fear, but with a promise stitched into every heartbeat. Not today, not one more. When the truck doors slammed shut, the range remained frozen. Dozens of boots anchored to the ground, faces locked somewhere between confusion and shame. The mountain wind breathed against them all as if waiting to see who they truly were. Lee turned, sleeve torn, tattoo visible, no more hiding. They looked at her with new eyes, some filled with awe, others guilt. Vance looked like he half expected her to breathe fire. Silence stretched thin. She stepped forward, voice even, but impossible to ignore. "Range is cold. Clear your weapons, strip your adapters, bring every piece to me." No one challenged the order, not this time. Vance tried to smirk, but the expression crumbled halfway. Brennan opened his mouth, but Stone's presence behind him, arms folded, jaw fixed, stopped whatever excuse he thought he had. They obeyed the quiet professional. As trainees formed a line at the inspection table, Lee took the first adapter, rolled it in her hand, and pointed out the damaged thread. "This," she said, "is what puts metal where blood should be. This is why standards exist." Each word punctured the arrogance that had once filled the air. Brennan swallowed hard. We didn't know." Lee didn't look up. "You didn't listen." Shame hit like recoil. Stone stepped beside her. His voice was low, not for authority but respect. "You caught everything they missed," he murmured. Lee didn't answer. Her focus was on the next life she might save, nothing more. Hours later, Connor Hayes was declared stable. The news spread. Relief loosened chests and unknotted stomachs, but gratitude brought something else too. Questions. Who was she really? Why hide what she'd earned? Why come back to a place that so easily dismissed her? Lee avoided them all. As night fell, she sat alone in an empty maintenance bay, sleeved rolled down, sewing the tear shut with a survival needle from her pocket. Small, precise stitches that reminded her of field repairs on days she refused to remember. The clink of bootsteps echoed in the steel bay. Colonel James Harrington entered, tall, composed, a lifetime of command resting on his shoulders. His eyes found the emblem she could no longer hide. "Gunnery Sergeant Leah Monroe," he said quietly. "Silver Star recipient, 2 Navy commendations, Master Close Combat Instructor, and a Marine who once dragged half a platoon out of hell." She froze with the thread between her fingers. His voice wasn't angry. It was tired, like someone who had just discovered he'd been blind. "You could have told me you were here," Harrington added. She looked down at the torn sleeve in her hands. "Wasn't my mission, sir." His jaw twitched, not from irritation, but from the weight of everything she wasn't saying. He softened his tone. "They need you, Monroe, not the clipboard, you." She shook her head. "I'm here to prevent the kind of pain I've caused before." He studied her more carefully now. "That day in Fallujah?" he asked. The air tightened, the needle slipped slightly. "I remember the report," he continued. "Convoy hit, communication chaos, 2 lives lost while command argued protocol." Her throat closed like a fist. She breathed once, steadying herself. "I made recommendations," she said faintly. "They were ignored. And you blamed yourself." She didn't deny it. Harrington exhaled, running a hand over his face. "Permission to be blunt, Gunny." Lee raised her eyes, worn but unbroken. "Always, sir. You can't spend the rest of your life punishing yourself for what arrogant men refuse to listen to." She looked away so he wouldn't see the truth in her eyes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Command in Quantico flagged your report. Someone higher than me noticed. They're watching you, Monroe, and not just because you saved a private today." That made her look at him directly. "What do they want?" she asked. "To see if the legend still exists," he answered. "To see if Iron Hawk is ready to fly again." The name hit like a jolt to her spine. Iron Hawk. A call sign she had sworn she would never wear again. A reminder of missions where survival didn't feel like a victory. She straightened quietly. "I buried that identity, sir." Harrington shook his head once. "Some names bury themselves so others can live." The lights hummed overhead as silence returned. But this silence felt different, loaded, electric. The colonel's voice softened even further. "Don't disappear into a clipboard, Lee. You didn't come back just to write reports." She wanted to argue, to insist she belonged here in the margins, watching others fail or succeed on their own. But the bandage still wrapped around her wrist, smudged with Hayes's blood, wouldn't let her lie. Responsibility had always followed her, so had the ghosts. The colonel walked away, but paused in the doorway. "One more thing," he said, not turning back. "Stone thinks the world of you. He's not wrong." Then he was gone. The quiet lingered long after. Lee finished stitching the tear, pressing a finger over the fabric. For a moment, it felt like a seal closing over a wound, a temporary fix for something deeper. She stared at her reflection in the stainless wall, a woman between who she was and who she feared she might become again. "Just let them be safe," she whispered to no one. "Don't make me go back." But life doesn't negotiate with promises. The next morning, soldiers straightened when she walked by. Some saluted before remembering she technically wasn't their superior. Respect now replaced the recklessness she once witnessed. Madison Pierce, the recruit who mocked her the loudest, jogged up nervously. "Ma'am, Private Hayes asked if you'd visit him in recovery," she said, eyes lowered. "He wants to thank you." Lee considered it. The memory of Hayes's blood, his fear, his question, "Am I gonna be okay?" All of it pressed into her sternum. "I'll see him this evening," she said softly. Madison nodded, relief visible. She hesitated, then whispered, "I'm sorry for before." Lee studied her carefully. "You were trained to trust volume," she murmured. "You're learning to trust silence." Madison blinked, and a small understanding took root in her eyes. Range drills resumed under new rules. Safety checks doubled. Rotation delays no longer mattered. No one complained. No one dared cut corners. not after seeing what nearly happened. But the air on base still thrummed with tension, the kind that comes before a storm. Stone stood beside Lee at the firing line, watching recruits adjust their positions. His voice was just above a whisper. "You can feel it, can't you?" he asked. "Feel what?" she replied. "The ground shifting under us." She wanted to deny it, but she saw the way command officers watched her now, as though she were a weapon being recited. She saw the unmarked SUVs near HQ. She saw the black encrypted radios clipped to belts that usually held nothing but keys. Eyes everywhere. Quiet orders being passed. Her past waking up. Stone slid his gaze toward her. "I heard Quantico made a call," he said, "asking about you." She didn't flinch. He continued, tone low. "Rumor says Pendleton. Rumor says sabotage. Rumor says the wrong people are pretending to be right." Lee tightened her jaw. "Rumors waste oxygen." "Facts kill without warning," Stone countered. She swallowed, throat dry. "What if they want you somewhere else?" he asked. She kept her eyes forward. "I'm not going back." "But what if you're the only one who sees the danger coming?" That question pierced deeper than any accusation. She had spent years trying not to be the one who noticed everything wrong, the one who sensed disaster before anyone else believed it, the one who foresaw pain and lived with the guilt anyway. But ignoring danger never made it disappear. Her silence, once a shield, was becoming a summons. Later, on her way to the recovery ward, Lee walked past command offices. Voices spilled out through an open door. "Monroe is the only one qualified. We need someone embedded. Minimal visibility, maximum effect." It wasn't paranoia if the threat listened back. She moved on before she could be seen. In the hospital wing, Hayes's face lit when he spotted her. "Ma'am," his voice cracked happily, "they said you saved the artery that I could have bled out." "You're here," she said gently. "That's what matters." He hesitated, then. "You shouldn't be out there behind us," he said. "You should be leading us." His confidence in her weighed, heavier than any ridicule ever had. She left before emotion could weaken her. Outside, dusk swallowed the edges of the base. Floodlights flickered on. Boots marched in cadence, a rhythm she once lived inside of beat by beat. As she walked toward barracks, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She stared at it, the screen glowing like a warning flare in the dark. Her thumb hovered. "One breath." "Two." She answered. "Monroe," she said, voice steady. A male voice responded, familiar, sharp, too precise to be casual. "Gunny, this is Major Bradley Vance, training command." Not the same Vance from the range, a different one, the kind with power. "We read your report," he continued, "and the preliminary findings from the investigation here." Her pulse slowed, muscles locked, the air tasted like old fear. "There's been a situation at Camp Pendleton," he said. 3 deaths during a training exercise. Mismatched equipment. Reports ignored." Her eyes closed. "Fallujah again, different names, same negligence." "We need someone who sees what others miss," Major Vance said. "Someone quiet, someone effective, someone like you." Silence breathed through the line. "What's the mission?" Lee asked. The answer was barely more than a whisper. "Find the truth before more Marines die." The call ended. Lee stood still under the floodlights, her breath the only thing that moved. The wind pressed her jacket against old scars, refusing to let her forget the weight she carried. She looked toward the dark horizon, toward a future she didn't choose but couldn't walk away from. When the quiet speaks, she thought, you listen, even if it leads you back into the storm. Why did the shadows feel heavier tonight? Why did every whisper seem to move with purpose, just out of reach? Fort Carson felt different the next morning, less like a training base, more like a battlefield holding its breath. The sky was still the same cold blue, but the air carried a tension everyone could feel without understanding why. Lee stepped onto the range before sunrise as always, boots tied with quiet precision, weighted pack hugging her shoulders. She scanned the ground, every casing, every footprint, every detail mapped instantly. But something new had seeped into this place. Eyes followed her now, some eyes full of respect, others full of fear, and a few filled with something darker, resentment born from insecurity. She didn't care about admiration, but resentment. Resentment could get people killed. She knelt near the bin of adapters, marking each one carefully. If she were leaving soon, she refused to leave chaos behind. Her hands were steady, but her heartbeat was. Too many memories fighting to surface. Fallujah. No air support. A medic screaming for help. Someone refusing to sign a request because it wasn't procedure. 2 lives lost. Her fault. Their fault. Everyone's fault. A voice cut through the haze. Lieutenant on deck. She turned. Colonel Harrington stood with 2 men in black jackets, no unit insignias, no names, government ghosts, the type who showed up when something was already going wrong. Stone joined her side without needing to be asked. Protector instinct awakened. The men approached like silence made them stronger. One extended a hand. "Gunnery Sergeant Monroe," he said. "Ms. Monroe," she corrected. "I'm retired." His eyes flicked to her sleeve, now repaired but still creased from that day. He ignored her correction. "I'm Special Agent Vors, training oversight and standards. This is Agent Calder." Government watchdogs, the kind who smile without showing teeth. Vors surveyed the range like it personally offended him. "We're here because of your reports and the incident." Stone's spine stiffened. He didn't trust suits like this. Lee didn't either, but she stood calm. "Was there something unclear in the reports?" she asked. Vors smirked. "No, just a lot we ignored too long." Honesty rare, unsettling. Calder stepped closer. 3 Marines dead at Camp Pendleton. Equipment failures. Same signature issues you documented here. Lee absorbed the blow silently. Not again. Not another base, burying its mistakes under paperwork. Vors lowered his voice. "We believe this is sabotage." The world sharpened, edges everywhere. Sabotage wasn't incompetence, it was intent. Her jaw clenched. "Who?" "We don't know yet," Calder said, "but we need someone who sees what others don't." Stone scoffed. "She's been screaming the truth for weeks. No one listened." Vors nodded once. "We're listening now." He handed her a sealed envelope. Thick, official, heavy like a burden being transferred. "Your orders if you choose to accept," he said. "Assess Pendleton, root out the threat, quietly." She didn't open it. Her fingers tightened around the paper anyway. "Why me?" Vors studied her the way predators study terrain. "You survived everything that should have broken you," he said. "That makes you dangerous. That makes you necessary." Stone's voice cut in. "She's not a tool to be used just because you finally woke up." Vors smiled again, not warmth, calculation. "She already knows that 2 young men in Fallujah might be alive if someone listened sooner." Lee flinched. That wasn't a guess. That was a weaponized truth. Stone stepped between them, a mountain shifting into place. "Back off." Vors tilted his head. "We didn't come to fight you, Gunny. We came to give her a chance to make sure history doesn't repeat." Lee spoke before Stone could respond. "It already did." Dead silence washed over them. Vors nodded once, as if that answer decided everything. "We'll expect your decision within 24 hours, he said, turning away. "Lives may depend on it." Calder lingered for a moment, then offered a small, unexpected piece of humanity. "Your hesitation means you care," he said softly. "That's why you're the best person for this." They left without another word. As their SUV disappeared, Stone placed a steady hand on Lee's shoulder. "You don't owe the Corps your soul, Monroe." "No," she said, "I owe the dead the truth." Stone knew arguing would change nothing, not with that look in her eyes. He had seen it before, right before Marines volunteered to run into fire without waiting for orders. Across the range, whispers grew louder, the kind built from fear. "Why are those agents here? What's going on? Is something wrong with our gear again? Are we targets?" Lee inhaled, exhaled. Her voice reached them all with clarity carved from pain. "Keep training, keep checking your equipment, keep watching each other's backs." A few heads nodded, a few stood taller, some still doubted, but now their doubt made them careful. As drills resumed, Madison Pierce approached her cautious, nervous. "Ma'am," she said, "I was wondering if you'd help coach me on casualty simulation. I want to do it right next time." Lee studied the young recruit's eyes. She saw fear, guilt, hope tangled together. "Meet me in the medical bay at 1800, Lee said, "and bring one partner." Madison looked relieved. "Yes, ma'am." Trust could grow even in soil once poisoned by ridicule. Later, while walking through the supply depot, Lee caught a glimpse of a figure slipping out a side door, too fast, too cautious. A metallic clatter echoed from where equipment was stored. Her instincts went razor sharp. She followed the sound, quiet, controlled, a predator returning to form. Inside the dim storage room, boxes were stacked high, shadows long. Her fingers traced a set of adapters on a shelf, all newly tagged defective. Except one. One adapter sitting too neatly on top, blue mark on the base, fresh, unmarked by the previous day's inspection. A plant. Sabotage wasn't a theory, it was here. She moved to grab it when... Click. A door slammed behind her, lock turning. Footsteps retreating. Someone had trapped her. She tried the handle, jammed, metal heavy, reinforced. The lights flickered, cut, total darkness swallowing her. Her breath calmed instantly. No fear. Only calculation. One wall was hollow construction, acoustics told her. Her boot heel tested pressure points. Not standard drywall, plated. They didn't plan to scare her. They planned to remove her. She heard it then. A faint hiss. "Gas." "Coward," she whispered. She pulled her sleeve over her mouth, crouched low, lungs burning. If they wanted to silence her, they underestimated the storm. They just woke up. The gas thickened. Her throat tightened. Vision blurred. Her hand scraped across the floor, metal bucket, loose tool, nothing useful. Then she found a fire extinguisher. Cold, heavy. Reliable. She slammed it once against the vent box, sparks spat. Again. Again. The metal bent, but not enough. She swayed. Limbs weakening. Heat in her chest. Not again. Not like Fallujah. Not helpless. Not silent. She launched her body against the vent with everything left inside her, extinguisher driving forward like a battering ram. The vent grill exploded outward. Cold night air rushed in. She crawled through the gap, hitting concrete hard outside, coughing violently, head spinning. Bootsteps stomped around the corner. Flashlights cutting through darkness. Stone, Harrington. Voices snarling orders. Medics rushing in. Get her up. Check her breathing. Who locked that door? Someone call security. Stone knelt, pulling her upright, supporting her weight. What happened? He demanded. Lee inhaled sharp, oxygen burning her lungs. Sabotage, she rasped. They know who I am and they want me gone. Stone's eyes went cold, the kind of cold that kills. Harrington called for a perimeter lockdown, radios screaming orders into the night. The bass buzzed like a kicked anthill. Vorse and Calder reappeared almost instantly, too fast to be coincidence. Calder helped steady her. "They're accelerating," he muttered. "We thought it would take longer." Vorse stared at the smashed vent. His face hardened. "They're not afraid of an investigation anymore," he said. "They're afraid of you." Lee wiped blood from her lip, legs still trembling. "They should be," she whispered. Vorse handed her a small device, encrypted phone, military grade. "Pendleton needs you now," he said. "This is bigger than bad parts. Someone is hunting our readiness, killing from inside." Stone looked ready to choke the nearest suspect. "What do you need?" he asked her. Lee stared at the adapter still clutched in her fist, the one she found planted, deadly, deliberate. Her voice returned in full strength, steel forged in the worst of humanity. "I need to go," she said, "tonight." Stone's breath hitched, but he nodded slowly, respect outweighing fear. Vorse spoke into his radio. "Operation underway," he said. Calder stepped back, giving Lee space. "Welcome back, Iron Hawk." Her pulse hammered once, the old call sign ripping through her armor like shrapnel. She breathed in the night air. Alive, awake. Purpose revived. She wasn't hiding anymore. The storm was here, and she was walking straight into it. Why did the road to Pendleton feel like a road back into a past she never escaped? Why did every mile forward feel like she was walking deeper into the shadows behind her? The black SUV moved fast under a moonlit highway, escorted by two unmarked Humvees. Lee sat in the back next to Agent Calder. The envelope containing her mission orders rested in her lap, opened, read, and now heavy like a sentence. Sabotage equipment failures, 3 Marines dead. And whoever did this wasn't finished. Vorse drove up front, eyes fixed on the horizon like he expected danger to step into the road. No radio chatter, no idle talk, just the hum of wheels and a presence in the air that felt hunted. Calder finally broke the silence. "You sure you want to be back in this?" he asked softly. "I was never out," Lee replied. He studied her profile, calm, controlled, but carrying a storm behind the eyes. "You were one of the best," he said, "maybe the best." "I was just trying to keep people alive," she murmured. "Same thing," he answered. She didn't correct him again. The convoy passed through gates at Camp Pendleton without slowing. Guards stood alert, posture crisp, a base on edge. As they parked near the operations compound, Vorse turned in his seat. "You'll have full access," he said, "but local command will want to keep this quiet. Officially, you're here as a civilian consultant." "And unofficially?" Lee asked. Vorse cracked a grim smile. "Iron Hawk flies under radar." That name again, the one she swore she'd never hear, the one soaked in blood and memory. Vorse continued. "We have a working theory. Someone is swapping equipment parts at multiple bases. The question is why." "Killing Marines is the why," Lee said. Calder shook his head. "Dead Marines draw investigation. This feels bigger." Vorse nodded. "It might be systemic sabotage, designed to cripple readiness slowly until the day we're needed most." Lee's fingers flexed, "Fight ready. Then let's find them." Vorse opened his door. "Welcome to Pendleton." Inside operations, the air smelled like stale coffee and stress. Officers spoke in low voices. A whiteboard displayed timelines of tragedies and red lines through names of the fallen. Lee's eyes locked on those names. PFC Kyle Duran, hemorrhage from equipment shrapnel. LCPL Marcus Ibarra, shock, delayed response. CPL Henry Cross, died in transit. Cross. The name punched her breath. She whispered, "Nina Cross, was she related?" Calder nodded, "Her brother." Lee's stomach twisted. She had watched Nina's face light with relief when Hayes survived. She had no idea Nina had already buried blood. Voris pointed to the range logs. Every failure points to one common source: defective adapters. Lee moved closer, eyes scanning rapidly. Patterns emerged instantly. Shipment codes didn't match inventory dates. A barcode sticker misaligned. Serial numbers skipped a sequence, which never happened unless someone wanted to hide a replacement. She tapped one code with her finger. Whoever did this isn't sloppy, they're disciplined. Calder added, or they're military. Her jaw tightened. Voris lowered his voice. To stop this, we need access to the armory, tonight. Lee nodded, and that was the only planning they needed. They stepped into the cool desert night, moving fast and quiet toward the armory building. Guards posted outside recognized Voris' authority and opened the doors. Inside, rows of weapons, racks gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. Military order, military power. Lee scanned for the adapter crates, found them stacked against the wall, sealed, stamped perfect, too perfect. She sliced open one crate, pulled an adapter, examined the threads with her thumb. Smooth. Too smooth. No manufacturing burrs, no signature cut imperfections. These weren't standard issue. She checked another, identical. Sabotage disguised as uniformity. Someone swapped entire shipments, she whispered, not just parts. Voris cursed under his breath. That takes access. And trust, Lee added. A faint click sounded behind them. Calder's hand went to his holster instantly. Voris reached for a flashlight. Lee raised a hand. Don't move, she breathed. Her senses stretched into the dark corner of the armory. She stepped forward, slow and silent. A storage cage hung open, lock cut clean. Inside, footprints in the dust pointed toward the back exit. Back door, she said. Someone was here minutes ago. Voris alerted base security. Calder and Lee swept the perimeter, guns drawn. The night air tasted metallic, like tension on the edge of violence. They followed footprints through a motor pool, across gravel, toward a maintenance shed. The door creaked. Lee froze, listening. Breathing inside. Shallow, nervous. She motioned. Calder kicked the door. Flashlight beam cut into the dark. A young Marine cowered inside, sweat pouring down his face, hands raised. Don't shoot, I didn't do anything, I swear. Voris stormed in. Name. PPRPVT Daniel Ruiz, the Marine stuttered. Lee crouched down, voice steady. Ruiz, what are you doing here at midnight? His eyes darted, terrified. I heard something, he said, tools dropping, thought someone was stealing gear. He swallowed. So I hid because I didn't want to look stupid. Calder lowered his weapon slowly. You saw someone. Ruiz nodded rapidly. Big guy, hood up, he dropped something. He pointed to a metal grate in the floor. Lee pulled it open, a gap just wide enough for a hand to slip through. She reached in. Her fingers closed around something cold. A spin adapter. Cracked. Blood on the edge. Whoever planted it had done so moments ago, right before they arrived. Yes, Voris said bitterly, they're taunting us. Lee stood, eyes burning with anger she rarely allowed herself. They're confident, she murmured. They think we're already too late. Voris barked orders into his radio. Lock down entire sector. No one leaves. No equipment moves. Anyone trying to access armory is a suspect. Ruiz stared at Lee, recognition dawning. Your Iron Hawk, he whispered. Lee froze. Then shook her head. No, that Marine is dead. Voris stopped her with a hand on her arm. We didn't call Iron Hawk here, he said. We called Leah Monroe, the one who saves lives. For a moment, a single fragile moment, she let that truth steady her. But peace didn't last long. Alarms erupted across the base, sharp, slicing cries in the night. A voice over loudspeaker. Fire in the barracks, medical emergency, all available personnel move. Chaos exploded. Marines sprinted in every direction. Smoke billowed from windows in a barracks building Harry Ibarra once slept in. The connection hit like lightning. Someone wanted them distracted. Or someone wanted another casualty. Lee ran before anyone could stop her. She burst into the barracks hallway, heat slamming into her face. Marines dragged mattresses and equipment, shouting names into smoke. She spotted 2 trainees struggling to carry a coughing Marine, collapsing under his weight. She grabbed the man's other arm, adrenaline firing like a weapon. "Get back," she ordered. They pulled him into clean air. Medics rushed over. He coughed violently, soot smeared across his face. "It started from the laundry room," a Marine gasped. "Explosion like pressure blew the pipe. Or like someone rigged it." Lee scanned the hallway, noticed the scorch point. Black residue streaks, directional blast inward, not outward. She knelt, fingers brushing metal fragments embedded in the doorframe. Threaded, tiny, familiar. Not pipe shrapnel. Adapter shrapnel. Her heart pounded. Same weapon. Different stage. Same murderer. Smoke swirled around her as radios crackled with panicked voices. "Not an accident. He's targeting us. We're sitting ducks." Vorse and Calder arrived seconds later. Calder shouted, "Everyone out, contain the fire, no one re-enters." Lee held up a fragment. "He's escalating," she said. "He wants fear, confusion, and he's inside the ranks." Calder's jaw tightened. This base could turn into a war zone if they panic. Vorse glared into the smoke. "Then we find him tonight." The fire dimmed as hoses blasted through windows. Marines coughed, soot darkening their uniforms. The injured Marine was loaded into an ambulance. Lee watched him go, not letting herself feel how close death had come. Stone's words from Fort Carson echoed in her skull. "Pressure doesn't scare you. Preventable tragedy does." She turned to Vorse, eyes steel. "This ends now," she said. "No more kids pay for someone else's hate." Before he could answer, her phone buzzed, encrypted line. Unknown code. She answered coldly, "Monroe." A modulated voice, distorted but confident, slithered into her ear. "Hello, Iron Hawk." Her blood froze. The voice chuckled softly. "I wondered how long it'd take you to catch up." She stared into the firelit night. "What do you want?" she demanded. "Oh, you know," the voice teased. "What we've always wanted, a stronger core." She clenched her jaw so hard it hurt. "You're killing Marines." "No," the voice corrected. "We're removing the weak. You've forgotten the price of survival." A dreadful familiarity crawled up her spine. "You know me," she whispered. "I know what you were," the voice replied. "I trained the same philosophy. You just lost the courage to follow it." Her breath stopped. This wasn't just an enemy. This was someone who believed they were right. Someone who believed her silence had made them strong. The voice finished with a calm promise. "I'll see you soon." The call ended. The wind howled. And Leah Monroe finally understood. This wasn't sabotage. It was ideology. A twisted creed. A rogue brotherhood. Born from the same battlefield she survived. And they wanted her back. Not as a hero. As a believer. She stood there, smoke curling into the night sky, alarms wailing, as the moral line she had fought her whole life to protect suddenly felt thinner than thread. Someone from her world. Someone from her past. Someone trained in the same silence. Was turning that silence into murder. Lee exhaled, a slow, steady release of fear turning into resolve. "You want to see me?" she whispered into the dark. "Then here I am." She stepped toward the smoke, not away. "Because you can't run from the shadows." Not when you were trained to become one. Who would betray the uniform they once bled to wear? Who would take the creed that saved them and twist it into a weapon? The fire was contained, but the panic lingered like poison in the air. Marines gathered in small groups, whispering theories that only fed the fear. Someone among them was hunting his own, and now he wasn't hiding it. Lee knew this playbook: instill doubt, divide the pack, make them turn on each other so the killer remains invisible. She had seen insurgents use the same tactic. But this wasn't an insurgent. This was one of theirs. Vors led Lee, Calder, and a shaken Ruiz into a dim briefing room. The door shut, the world outside muffled, their voices the only stable ground left. Vors paced like a commander trapped in a politician's cage. Whoever this is, they have access, training, and a sick belief that they're serving the country. Lee leaned forward, elbows on the table. They're not doing this alone, she said. No single Marine could infiltrate shipments across multiple bases. This is a cell, a brotherhood. Calder rubbed his forehead. Any idea where they came from? Lee's stare drifted away, to a memory she never wanted to face. Fallujah. The heat, the desperation, the silence of command. After the ambush that killed two and nearly killed Hayes, she had testified against a superior officer, a man who delayed support because he refused to deviate from a flawed plan, a man who believed failure was weakness, and weakness deserved to die trying. Captain Elijah Kane. He was discharged quietly, reputation scrubbed, no courts-martial, no headlines, just erased like the stain he was. But stains don't disappear. They spread. Lee's voice came out hushed, shaken by memory. There was someone who preached survival by sacrifice, but not the noble kind. Vors stopped packing. What was his name? She swallowed hard. Kane. The room froze around the word. Vors nodded slowly, like confirmation of a fear he'd been trying to deny. We suspected he didn't disappear, Vors said. He's been recruiting, indoctrinating, a movement born from the idea that the military is too soft to survive the next war. Calder cursed quietly, and now he's proving his point with body bags. Lee felt her breath tighten. He thinks this is strength, she whispered. He thinks fear creates better soldiers. Vors leaned in. He knows you'll come for him. He already came for me, she corrected. Now he wants me to choose a side. Calder opened a secure tablet. A map popped up, shipping routes, red flags tracing across the country. He's hit 4 bases so far, Calder said. Pendleton is the first where we caught on fast enough to intervene. And that's why he wants it to look like we're failing, Lee replied. He wants the Corps to doubt its own guardians. Vors went quiet, then asked a question nobody wanted answered. How much damage can he still do? Lee didn't sugarcoat it. As much as we let him. Silence swallowed the room. Then a new alarm buzzed over the intercom. Not fire this time. Not emergency responders. A base-wide low warning. Security lockdown. High threat confirmed. Calder grabbed his radio. What now? A voice crackled back. Explosive found in weapons cleaning station. Diffusing now. Vors slammed his fist onto the table. He's escalating. Lee stood up, decision already made. He's forcing our hand. We hunt him, not wait for his next strike. Vors nodded grimly. Agreed. Calder added, but we can't panic the base. He'll use chaos to disappear. Lee's eyes darkened with resolve. Then we stay quiet and move faster than fear. As they stepped out of the briefing room, a familiar voice called her name. Lee. Nina Cross jogged toward her, uniform wrinkled, eyes wet with worry. She reached Lee and grabbed her hands, holding on like the ground might crumble. You're really here, Nina whispered. Lee's guard faltered. I'm sorry about your brother, she said quietly. Nina shook her head. No, not sorry, angry. She raised a shaky breath. No one told me the truth. They said it was an equipment malfunction. But that wasn't it, was it? Lee stared into eyes that looked too much like Henry's in his file photo. No, she said softly, it was. Nina's voice cracked, but her back straightened like a Marine's spine should. Then help me fight the thing that killed him. Lee almost told her no, almost pushed her away to keep her safe. But Nina Cross was no child. She was a soldier standing in the wreckage of loss, searching for purpose. Lee nodded. You stay in formation, you listen to orders, you don't chase revenge, you chase justice, understood? Nina swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Vors watched the exchange, eyes unreadable. You sure you want to involve her? He asked later. She's already involved, Lee replied. We all are. The night stretched long, investigations, interviews, searching for a ghost who moved like smoke and struck like lightning. Hours passed, fear settled into exhaustion. At 300, Lee finally separated from the others and stepped outside. The base quieted, except the low rumble of generators and distant footsteps. A cold wind blew through the open spaces. She needed space to think, but the night had other plans. A lone Marine approached, hood up, hands in pockets, slow steps. Lee's hand slid to her holster, posture shifting into readiness. Identify yourself, she commanded. The Marine stopped, lifted his chin, the hood fell away. A face she recognized. Not from Pendleton. Not new recruits. Not an enemy line. Fallujah. Corporal Jonah Price. Once a radio tech. Now eyes filled with a frightening conviction. I knew you'd come alone, he said. She tightened her stance. Price, why are you here? You shouldn't have testified against him, Price said calmly. Kane taught us that the world doesn't care about our rules, only results. And killing Marines is a result you're proud of, she shot back. They're the ones who failed, Price said. Weakness kills more soldiers than bullets. He stepped closer. Lee didn't back down. This isn't strength, she growled. It's corruption, cowardice. Price smiled, sad but certain. That weakness is why we lost brothers, why Hayes almost died, why Henry Cross is gone. He lifted his hands, palms open, like offering understanding instead of threat. Lee, you could help us fix it. Her heart punched her ribs. You're trying to recruit me. You are one of us, Price insisted. Kane only wants what you wanted, a corps that survives the wars coming, not the wars we already lost. Lee shook her head. I want a corps that protects its own. Price's eyes flickered, something breaking. We were supposed to be the future, he whispered. You taught us that. You showed us what survival looks like. She stepped closer, voice steady, knife sharp. And then I learned that survival without humanity isn't winning. Price's jaw tightened. And losing more Marines is. He took one more step, too close now, and Lee saw the decision form behind his eyes. He wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to deliver a warning. Captain Kane wants to meet you, Price said. He wants to finish what Fallujah started. And what if I say no, she asked. Price's smile turned cold. Then more will die. His expression hardened, and his fist moved fast. But Lee moved faster. She dodged, grabbed his wrist, twisted, he hit the ground, breath expelled in a grunt. She pressed her boot to his shoulder, pinning him. You don't scare me, she whispered. Price's voice rasped out broken laughter. You should be scared of what you made us. He spat blood and bit down on something in his cheek. Cyanide capsule. Before she could react, foam bubbled at his lips. No, Price. Lee grabbed his jaw too late. His heartbeat faded beneath her palm. Boots thundered closer, Vors and Calder rushing in with weapons raised. Vors knelt beside the dying Marine, his face collapsing into controlled fury. "Damn it," he muttered. Calder looked at Lee. He talked. Lee stood slowly, breathing like she'd swallowed ice. "Yes," she said, "he talked." Vors exhaled, dread shaping into strategy. "Kane knows you're here," he said, "and he has soldiers willing to die for him." Lee stared at Price's still face, a soldier lost to a nightmare he thought was discipline. She whispered to herself, to the wind, to whatever ghost still listened. "This isn't war." Her eyes lifted, fire igniting behind them. "This is a rescue." Vors asked quietly, "Of who?" Lee answered like a vow. "Of everyone Kane hasn't taken yet." She turned toward the dark, where a former officer waited in the shadows with an army of broken believers. She once stood under his command. Now she would bury his doctrine. Not with bullets. With truth he could no longer silence. The night stretched before her, long, uncertain, dangerous. And Leah Monroe stepped into it slowly, silently. Like a hawk rising on a storm no one else could see. How do you hunt a ghost who knows every move you'll make, because he trained you to make them? Sleep never came. The base was a restlessness machine, alarms, patrols, anxiety thick in every hallway. Lee didn't waste time trying to shut her eyes. There was too much to do, too much to follow, too many fractures forming under the surface. She stood inside a dim command tent, studying a map pinned with colored markers showing recent failures: Fort Carson, Pendleton, 2 supply hubs in between. Kane's path wasn't random. It was a corridor, a progression, testing weaknesses, mapping reactions. Calder joined her, steaming coffee in each hand. He gave her one without a word. She took it, fingers warming around the metal. "You ever wonder what would have happened if Fallujah went differently?" he asked quietly. She stared at the map, not him. "All the time. And if Hayes and the others hadn't survived?" Her answer came immediately. "Then Kane would have buried me in silence too." Calder nodded, not in agreement but in understanding. He believes tragedy is a teacher. "No," she corrected sharply. "He thinks tragedy is a tool." Vors entered, eyes sharp, shoulders heavy. "We tracked unauthorized network pings from a comms tower on the South Ridge," he said. "Short bursts, encrypted. Someone's transmitting from inside the perimeter." Lee's pulse jumped. Kane's voice still echoed like a threat in her skull. "Let's finish what Fallujah started." "We move," she said. The three geared up fast, low visibility gear, suppressed weapons, night optics. As they moved out, the base lights faded behind them, replaced by open terrain and the whisper of wind over dirt. Halfway to the ridge, Lee stopped cold. Someone was following them. Not amateur footsteps, tactical spacing, breath controlled. Vors noticed too. He motioned to hold position. Calder swung wide left, silent. Lee drew her sidearm slowly, eyes narrowing into the dark. "Show yourself," she ordered. From behind a storage stack, a silhouette emerged, trembling slightly but standing tall. A young Marine, gun at low ready, face pale but determined. "Nina Cross." Lee lowered her weapon, but not her guard. "Nina," she said sternly, "I told you to stay in formation." Nina swallowed hard. "With respect, ma'am, my formation is with you." Vors cursed under his breath. "She's not trained for this." Nina's chin lifted. "I'm a Marine, that's trained enough." Calder returned to them. "We don't have time to send her back." Lee stared at Nina, the fear, the grief, the hunger for purpose. She remembered herself at 19, trying to outrun a flag-covered coffin. "Stay behind me," Lee said, "and you do exactly what I say." "Yes, ma'am." They continued, 4 shadows sliding up a ridge that felt more like the edge of a trap. As they neared the comms tower, Lee felt the shift, the sensation of being watched by someone patient. "We're not alone," she whispered. Vors took point. Calder covered their flank. Lee signaled to Nina down, stay quiet. The flash of movement came from the north tree line, a glint of metal, then silence. Lee raised her optics, scanned. There. Scope glint. Sniper position. She shoved Nina aside as a round cracked the ground where her head had been. Contact north. Vorse fired 3 suppressed shots, forcing the sniper to drop behind cover. Calder advanced low and fast, using rocks as shields. Nina stared at Lee, heart in her throat. Go, Lee barked, pushing her toward a generator block. Stay down. Rounds sliced air. Dirt spat up, the hillside lit by muzzle flashes like tiny bursts of lightning. Lee sprinted to flank the ridge, instincts hunting with cold precision. She slid into a rocky depression, rolled, and fired 3 shots at the sniper's last position. Silence. Vorse called out, clear. A beat. Another. Calder answered, clear for now. They approached the nest. A jacket lay discarded, Marine issue, a scope, no rifle, no shooter. Pull back, trap, Lee growled. He wanted us up here. Vorse examined the tower cables, one line sliced clean. He was transmitting before we arrived, he said. Message already sent. Lee's eyes narrowed. He wasn't trying to kill us, he was buying time. Calder's radio clicked static first, then a frantic voice. Medical bay breached. Intruder taking hostages. Need immediate support. Lee's blood turned to ice. Nina gasped, stepping closer. Medical, that's where. She didn't finish. They ran. Full speed, gravity pulling them dangerously fast down the slope, boots pounding dirt in a sprint fueled by dread. As they neared the main compound, they saw lights flooding the medical wing, Marines barricading hallways, a hostage negotiator shouting orders. Vorse yanked a sergeant aside. Status. Unknown number of assailants, the sergeant reported. We think he's alone, but we can't confirm. He's inside with 2 wounded Marines. Lee stepped forward, voice like a blade. Where Hayes? The sergeant's face cracked into fear. He was moved to the medical wing for oxygen support. Lee didn't wait. She pushed past the barricade. Vorse grabbed her arm hard. You rush in and he'll kill them, he snapped. Her heartbeat hammered fury. He took them because of me. Exactly why you think, Vorse said. He wants you desperate, predictable. Nina approached, trembling. I can help, she whispered. I know the layout. Henry spent weeks here in rehab. I visited him every day. Lee turned slowly. Nina's eyes shimmered, not with weakness. With resolve. Lee nodded once. Show me. They ducked behind med carts and equipment as Nina guided them to a service hallway, not on the main schematic. Quiet, unassuming, used by cleaning crews. Perfect for a ghost. Nina pointed to a door. Hayes' room is through there, she whispered. He'll keep him close. Leverage makes him strong. Vorse took aim at the door hinges. Calder prepared flashbangs. Lee listened through the metal, her ear pressed cold against it. Inside, breathing. Slow, controlled. Confident. A voice calm as a sermon. Weakness is permission for death to enter. You wouldn't understand, Hayes. You were saved by a traitor to the creed. Hayes murmured something weak, panicked, struggling. Lee's hand shook. Kane. He wasn't alone after all. Vorse raised 3 fingers. 3, 2, 1. A flashbang detonated, white fury flooding the room. They stormed inside, weapons drawn. Kane stood center, hand gripping Hayes by the collar, a blade at the Marine's throat. The flashbang didn't faze him enough. His eyes locked onto Lee instantly, a hunter recognizing another predator. There she is, he said softly, the famous Iron Hawk. Lee aimed dead center, put the knife down. Kane smiled, not shaken, thrilled. Do you know why they mocked you at Carson? Why they pushed you aside? Hayes whimpered. Kane's grip tightened. Because you refused the truth. Weakness deserves burial. Lee stepped closer, slow, eyes locked onto his. And you decide who's weak. I decide who's prepared, Kane corrected. War is coming, Lee, a real one, one this country isn't ready for. I am saving the Corps by pruning its rot. You're murdering Marines, she hissed. There's no honor in that, no mission, just ego and blood. Kane tilted his head. Says the woman who survived because others died. Nina flinched at the cruelty of the words. Voice tense, finger tight on trigger. Calder positioning for a clear shot. Kane pressed the blade. Hayes gasped. You walk any closer, Kane warned, and I'll demonstrate the price of weakness. Lee breathed once slowly. You want to save the Corps, she said. Start by saving him. Kane's gaze burned into her, searching for the lie. He found none. You disappoint me, he whispered. Lee softened her stance, gun still raised, but her voice shifting. You told them the Corps must survive the coming wars, she said. But a Marine who kills his own has already declared defeat. Kane's jaw twitched. For the first time, doubt flickered. Hayes groaned, losing consciousness. The blade slipped slightly from Kane's grip, instinct loosening for one fraction of a second. Vorse saw it. Calder saw it. Lee felt it. Now. She fired. The round tore into Kane's shoulder, his knife clattering to the floor. Hayes fell as Calder caught him. Vorse tackled Kane to the ground, both struggling fiercely. Nina rushed to Hayes, holding his head steady as medics rushed in. Kane fought like a wild animal, training and madness fused into feral strength. Vorse landed elbow strikes. Kane countered with a knee that nearly knocked him unconscious. Lee grabbed Kane's wrist, twisting hard until bone popped. He screamed, vicious, primal. Security stormed the room, restraining him with force that barely contained his fury. He spat blood at the floor, eyes locked on Lee. You think this ends with me, he snarled. There are others, hundreds. They will finish what I started. Lee leaned close, voice a cold flame. Then I'll stop every one of them. Kane laughed, a sound dripping with certainty. You already failed, he whispered. You just don't know it yet. Vorse nodded to security. Get him out of here, he ordered. Isolation, no contact. Kane was dragged away, still smiling. Still victorious in his own mind. Nina squeezed Lee's arm. Hayes is stable, she said. We saved him. Lee looked at Hayes, breathing oxygen, alive because she acted. But Kane's words echoed. You already failed. Lee felt the wrongness before she understood it. The air in the room shifted, and a memory snapped into place. The comms tower. The transmission. The delay. The sniper. The distraction. Kane wasn't trying to win here. He was playing for somewhere else. Vorse saw her expression shift, fear blooming in her eyes. What, he asked, what is it? Lee whispered. He wasn't buying time for himself. The silence after that was suffocating. Nina stepped closer, voice shaking. Then who's he buying time for? Lee's answer was a blade cutting truth into the dark. For the ones already en route. The realization hit hard. Pendleton wasn't the target. It was the curtain. The real strike, the real massacre, was about to begin somewhere else. And Lee could feel it. They were already too late. Why would an enemy choose just one battlefield, when they could make the entire nation guess where the real war would begin? Alarms pierced the night like knives through silence. Kane had been dragged away, but his poisonous certainty still lingered. You already failed. Vorse barked into radios. Commanders scrambled to understand what no one could see yet. Lee stood rigid, mind racing through scenarios faster than fear could catch up. 3 bases hit so far. Sabotage patterns precise. Pendleton was an interruption, not an objective. Nina hovered close, eyes wide but fierce, refusing to be sent away. Hayes lay safe under sedation, alive, his heartbeat proof that Kane did not decide fate. Lee forced calm into her voice. "We need real-time intel," she said. "Where could the network hit hardest right now?" Calder worked a tablet with trembling urgency. "Major operations happening tonight 2 places," he said. "Camp Lejeune, a night field live fire exercise, and Coronado, SEAL Bud S trainees finishing Hell Week, families arriving for graduation." Lee's pulse crashed into dread. Lejeune, hundreds of Marines with sabotaged gear. Coronado, the nation's most elite, and their unprotected families. A synchronized strike would shatter the core from both ends, emotionally and strategically. Vorse swore under his breath. He wants the country watching. He wants heartbreak broadcast live. Lee clenched her fist. No. Not again. Not while she could still fight. "Split task forces," she said. "Lejeune gets bomb disposal and engineering teams. Coronado gets counterterror assault and EOD. Vorse studied her face. "Where do you belong?" The answer was a wound, but a true one. "Where the hostages are," she said. "Families make Kane's message louder." Vorse gave a short nod, a trust forged in fire. "We'll take Coronado. Calder prep transport." He turned to Lee, something heavier in his eyes. "But you're not leading the breach," he said. "You're too close, you can't risk." She stepped forward, voice razor-sharp. "I am risking, that's the point." Silence. Then Vorse exhaled, conceding. "You go in front," he said, "but you don't go alone." Her gaze fell to Nina. "No families die tonight," Lee said. "Not one." Nina nodded without hesitation. "Then let's move." Blackhawks cut through darkness, blades pounding dread into noise. Lights of San Diego coastline flickered below. The Pacific shimmered like a threat swallowing stars. Lee stared out the open side of the aircraft, mind sharpening into a weapon. She remembered teaching trainees. If you aren't scared, you're stupid. If you let fear decide, you're dead. She wasn't scared. But her heart was a war zone. Calder spoke over the comm. Early reports masked infiltrators at Coronado. Hostage situation confirmed at the graduation prep center. Vorse added, "Lejeune reports multiple explosions in training lanes, casualties unknown." Nina's hand shook slightly. Lee placed her own hand over hers, steady warmth. "You remember your brother's courage," she said softly. "Use it, don't drown in it." Nina inhaled, a Marine reclaiming breath as a promise. "I won't," she whispered. The helicopter banked, Coronado coming into view. Troop carriers, floodlights, chaos. Families evacuated to the far pier, children crying, parents clutching them, SEAL instructors barking commands. But a cluster of civilians remained trapped inside the main auditorium, steel shutters sealed around them like a tomb. Calder pointed, "That's where they're holding them." Lee's headset crackled, on-site commander patching through. "We made contact with the hostile leader. He wants a trade." Lee's pulse stilled. Vorse asked, "Trade for what?" "Static." A quiet, terrified voice answered. "For Leah Monroe." Nina's eyes snapped to her, terror mixed with awe. Calder swore, "They want you to walk in unarmed." Lee didn't hesitate. "Good," she said, "then they'll get close." Vorse grabbed her arm, not ordering, begging. "Kane is in a cage right now, but this is his hand reaching out. You walk in there and it's his victory." Lee turned slowly, the weight of her past visible in every line on her face. "You think he made me?" she asked. "No, Fallujah did, Lost did, but I chose who I became, he didn't." Vor has released her, respect carved into surrender. "We breach at your call," he said. Lee removed her holster, handing her weapon to a waiting Marine. Then her knife. Then her radio. Every tool gone, but none of her power. She walked toward the sealed doors as soldiers peeled back, giving her a clear path. Nina took one step forward. "Ma'am." Lee stopped her with a glance fierce but kind. "You've already proven enough tonight," she said. "Stay alive for your brother." Nina's breath shuddered. "Yes, ma'am." Lee pressed a hand to the door scanner, surrendered straight into the lion's mouth. The metal sealed behind her. The room inside was dim, emergency lights painting the floor in violent red strokes. Families huddled on the stage. 2 armed men patrolled, and in the center a figure turned slowly, recognizing her footsteps before seeing her face. Sergeant Major Damian Reeve. Another ghost from Fallujah. Another believer twisted by Kane's creed. His grin was a scar. "The prodigal hawk returns," he said. "He knew you'd come." Lee didn't respond, eyes scanning every position, every angle. "You're too late anyway," Reeve continued. "Kane has already lit the fuses. This is just punctuation." Lee stepped closer, unshaken. "You think murder will save the Corps?" Reeve shrugged. "Evolution requires casualties." "Then start evolving," she hissed. "Let them go." Reeve chuckled, amused by her defiance. He signaled a second man, who pointed his rifle at a trembling, older woman clutching a child. Lee's voice dropped into cold clarity, the sound of a soldier deciding truths. "You're a Marine. Those are your people." Reeve's smile died. "My people died in sand while politicians argued," he snapped. "Your testimony put the knife in the Corps' spine. You made weakness acceptable." "And you punish courage," Lee countered. "Fallujah didn't make you strong, it made you afraid." He twitched. She hit the wound he denied existed. "This is fear," she said. "Wearing a mask and a rifle, killing children doesn't stop war. It only proves you're too broken to keep fighting." Reeve's eyes flooded with rage, pounding fists against the ideology cracking in his chest. And in that fracture, Lee struck. "You want something worth dying for," she whispered. "Try saving them." For the first time, uncertainty flickered. He lowered his weapon, slightly. But the second man saw weakness, panicked, swung his barrel toward Lee. She moved like instinct reborn. She grabbed the rifle, twisted, slammed the man's arm into the ground, a sickening snap. He screamed. Reeve lunged in confusion, too late. The hostages scattered low as Lee rolled, grabbed the rifle, and leveled the sights at both attackers. Outside, Vor's voice thundered through loudspeaker. "Breach, breach, breach." Glass shattered. Flashbangs erupted. Commandos flooded in like justice made of muscle. Reeve dropped his gun, hands raised, but his eyes still defiant. "This changes nothing," he spat. "You can cage us, but you can't stop what's coming." Lee stepped close, so close he saw every truth she refused to bury. "Yes," she said, "I already did." Vor's restrained Reeve. Calder disarmed the second man. Medics ferried the last civilians out. Nina ran inside, wide-eyed, breathless, scanning for blood, for loss. Instead, she found Lee standing alive in the center. She exhaled, relief cracking into tears she quickly wiped away. Lee gave her a nod, quiet, proud. But victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like a countdown. Vorse approached, tablet in his hand, fear-poisoning technology. "New intel," he said quietly. "Legion wasn't the main strike either. That was another distraction." Lee swallowed dread. "Then where?" A horrifying thought slammed into her. The only base with the most vulnerable Marines. Fresh recruits, barely trained, trusting everything placed into their hands. Fort Carson. Her heart ripped open. "Stone," she breathed. "Madison, all of them." Vor whispered the confirmation like a curse. They're already under attack. Lee's knees nearly buckled, but she refused to fall. Not again. Not while she could still run. She turned, shouting, "Get me a bird now." Because heroes don't fear the storm. They chase it. White heavy checkmark part 7 complete. Tilde 1-800 words. Coordinated multi-site attacks confirmed. Lee confronts a major cell leader and rescues civilians. Ideology cracking, but far from defeated. Cliffhanger, Fort Carson under attack. Personal stakes at highest point. Stone, Madison recruits. White heavy checkmark final chapter next, part 8. This will deliver. The return to where it all began. Personal confrontation with Kane's army. The moral heart, dignity through action. A poetic, reflective, satisfying ending for YouTube. Emotional payoff, redemption, sacrifice, strength. Before I write the finale, which emotional direction do you want the ending to lean toward? A triumphant strength. She proved them wrong and saved them all. B. Bittersweet sacrifice. Strong emotional hit, someone important doesn't survive. C. Quiet, reflective victory. No glory, just dignity and hope earned the hard way. D. A blend, victory with scars. A life saved, a cost paid, a future rebuilt. Just reply. 8A, 8B, 8C, or 8D. How should Lee's story land its final punch? How many times can a heart break before it becomes the strongest weapon a soldier has? The Black Hawk tore through dawn air, slicing toward Fort Carson like a scream of urgency. Lee stood near the open door, wind hammering her face. The sky glowed with first light, indifferent to the nightmare below. Pendleton was stable, Coronado was safe. But home was under siege. Calder monitored radios, chaos spilling into his headset. Small arms fire near supply depot, range area ablaze, trainees barricaded in the main hangar. Lee's stomach clenched. She knew that hangar. Stone drilled them there every morning. Vorse leaned in. We insert near the motor pool. Marines holding a thin perimeter, but the attackers blend in too well to separate yet. They won't hold forever, Lee said. They don't have to, Vorse replied. Just long enough for you to find the ringleader on site. Lee didn't answer, because she already knew who would be here. Not Kane, but his most loyal believers. His successor. She closed her eyes, a single breath fortifying 1,000 fears. The helicopter dropped fast, wheels slamming dirt. They bilayed, boots thudding into a base transformed into battleground. Smoke spiraled above rooftops. Gunfire crackled in bursts. Marines shouted orders, confusion and courage mixed into survival. A young Marine sprinted toward them, pale, shaken. "Ma'am, Monroe, right. Master Sergeant Stone, he's pinned with a squad near the barracks. They said to find you." Hope punched through her ribs. "He's alive," she breathed. But hope was fragile. And war was not. "Lead us," Lee ordered. They moved through alleyways between buildings, the young Marine guiding them. Debris everywhere, vehicles burning. The supply depot door blown out, sabotage meeting fire. They turned a corner, and there they were. Stone and 5 trainees crouched behind overturned crates, returning fire toward an L-shaped building. And beside him, terrified but determined, Madison Pierce. Madison, alive, holding her rifle like it was heavier than she ever trained for. Stone spotted Lee. Relief flickered, but only for a heartbeat. "You took your damn time," he growled. Lee knelt beside him. "Miss me?" He snorted, then fired again. "I'll miss you if we die." Lee peeked the corner, 4 hostiles visible, indistinguishable at distance in stolen Marine gear. But one moved differently, purposeful, commanding. She grabbed a fallen radio. Static hissed. "For Kane's creed. Purge the weak." Iron must sharpen iron. Her pulse chilled. They wanted recruits. They wanted blood. They wanted to impress their prophet. Vors deployed 2 smoke canisters, obscuring vision. Calder flanked right, silent and fast. Lee signaled Stone and the recruits to hold fire. Then she took Madison's wrist gently. "You okay?" Lee asked. Madison swallowed. "No, ma'am, but I'm ready." That was enough. Lee stood and walked into the smoke. Bullets sliced the air, but she didn't flinch. Her voice cut through the chaos like a command born of truth. "Kane is in custody. Stand down." A figure emerged, taller, broader, rifle aimed at her heart. Sergeant Major Reeves' successor, a shadow wearing loyalty like armor. "You think caging him ends us?" the man snarled. "He planted seeds in every unit." "And those seeds are dead the moment you stop watering them," she replied. He stepped closer, safety clicking off. "You failed the Corps," he spit. "You made us weak." "No," Lee interrupted, eyes burning. "I survived, and that terrifies you." His rage snapped and he rushed her. But Lee wasn't who she was in Fallujah. She moved aside, redirected his momentum, his rifle skidding across concrete. He threw punches, wild, furious. She absorbed one, dodged another, countered with precision. "Fear is your weapon," she hissed, "not discipline." "I am discipline," he roared. "No," she said, catching his arm, twisting. Snap! His cry echoed. "You're just afraid you'll never be enough without a gun." He collapsed, defeated but snarling. Calder cuffed him as he cursed his broken creed. Stone approached, bleeding from the shoulder but standing tall. "You done trading philosophy?" he asked. Lee smirked lightly, "for the moment." Medics rushed over, tending to the injured. Vors radioed command, multiple attackers captured, a few dead. Chaos beginning to unwind into control. But Lee wasn't ready to celebrate. "Check the hangar," she said, "every trainee." She wasn't leaving until she saw the proof. Until she saw that silence had not taken lives again. The hangar door creaked open, dark inside. Lee stepped first, careful. Madison behind her, holding breath. The smell of cordite and fear lingered like a warning. Then movement. Hundreds of faces, young, scared, emerging from behind crates and vehicles. Marines alive. The relief hit so fast it hurt. A voice broke ranks. "Ma'am." Nina Cross barreled in from the main gate, out of breath, eyes searching, then landing on Lee. "You made it," Nina gasped. "I thought." Lee pulled her into a fierce embrace. "I told you," Lee whispered. "We save who we can." Nina nodded, wiping tears she didn't apologize for. Stone approached, bandaged already, but still glaring with authority. "You're not cleared for active duty," he said. She raised a brow. "You going to write me up?" He grunted. "I'll write you up for showing up late." Madison giggled, exhaustion bubbling into relief. The sound made Lee's throat tighten. Lives saved. Fear conquered. But triumph was quiet because loss lingered. Price's body. The brothers of Nina and others. The Marines at other bases, hurt or gone. Victory did not erase the graves. Vors joined them, tablet in hand, expression complex. "Kane's network is dismantled," he said. "Leaders captured, channels shut down." "But not gone," Lee replied. Vors nodded. "No, ideology doesn't disappear overnight." Calder stepped beside her. "That's why we want you with us, long term." Lee blinked. "With you?" "Counter-internal terrorism unit. Department of Defense oversight," Calder said. "Advisory role, active field if you choose. You see what others ignore." Stone crossed his arms. "She belongs training Marines." Lee looked at both men. 2 paths, 2 futures. One in the light, one in the shadows. She thought of Hayes. Of Madison. Of Nina. of every name on the whiteboard. Fear turned into promise. She took a slow breath. "I'll advise," she said, "but I'm done hiding from daylight." Calder smiled. Stone smirked. Madison beamed. Nina watched her proud. Voorhees extended a hand. She shook it, sealing a purpose finally found. A base commander announced, "All clear." The words washed over everyone like a prayer, finally answered. Lee stepped outside, soft morning sun, rising over a day that almost never arrived. Stone stood beside her. "Hell of a night," he said. "Hell of a life," she replied. He nudged her. "You did good, Monroe." She didn't deflect. "Yeah," she said quietly, "we did." She looked out across Fort Carson, smoke still rising, Marines tending wounds, sunlight finding courage in the wreckage. There would be scars. Fear didn't vanish. But dignity remained. Sometimes strength isn't shown in the battles you win. It's shown in the ones you refuse to lose. Leah Monroe inhaled the new day, shoulders squared, heart steady. Fallujah didn't break her. Ridicule didn't stop her. Kane didn't define her. And now she chose the creed. Protect. Teach. Stand. Speak when others silence. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And the world someday will understand. The hawk didn't rise for applause. She rose for those who still needed wings.